everyone. Welcome to the Femme Tell All podcast. My name is Madison Bellissimo.
And I'm Ruth Devereaux.
And we're so happy you're here.
We're always happy you're here.
We love this so much.
It makes us so happy.
And we're up leveling. You guys like the curtain?
Look at us.
We're giving texture. We're giving femininity. And if you hate it,
don't tell us.
I was going to say respectfully tell us.
No, don't tell us.
Or
don't care.
tell us.
No, I'm kidding.
We're going to play around with it. And you guys have seen we've done a lot of different changes. And this is just one of the many. It's anyone who's listening, you don't know what we're talking about. So,
but check us out on YouTube.
Yeah. Check us out. Shameless plug. So today we haven't recorded a solo episode in a while.
Yeah, we missed this.
Yeah, so
we
we're
love
very
having
excited.
guests on, but we also love being together.
I know. And it's actually funny. The topic that we're going to discuss today, I was going to say discuss today is how healing isn't always linear and how
I don't think it ever is, honestly.
Yeah, it really ebbs and flows. And honestly, what made me think about this, you've brought this up as a topic before, and you're 100% the reason we're doing it. But I listened to last week's episode. Yeah. We recorded that back in March.
Yeah.
And I was listening to myself talk about a topic that I forgot I talked about in that episode. And I was like, wow, like it really, to Ruth's point, it isn't linear. Like you can go through some really hard heartbreak. You can go through even healing from trauma, like childhood trauma, healing from even like losing your job or losing an opportunity that you were excited about, a dream that you were hoping for, any kind of grief. Healing isn't linear.
I think healing often comes in different waves because you have to heal to a certain point to be able to heal to a different level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like you could never heal all at once. Like even if you think of a cut, it doesn't heal all at once. It goes through the levels. It goes through this first, the bleeding stops, then the scab forms, then there's like fresh skin, then that skin becomes normal, then there's maybe a scar. Like there's so many different levels, and those cuts we have as human beings are so much more intricate than a top level cut. Totally. That I think that there's no way to know how you're going to be affected in the future that's going to bring up different parts that you need to heal from one trauma. Totally. Or even things that you've forgotten about. I think that there's times I've talked to people where it's like, oh, I forgot that happened, because they've like maybe like pushed it down to be able to continue moving forward, be able to continue to live life in the way that they want. But when those things are revealed, then the healing starts all over again.
Yeah, absolutely. There's triggers that people come into contact with.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell a funny story really quick.
I'm
so sorry. No, this literally happened last night as my wonderful parents were helping me install these curtains. My mom was like, this time of year, how is it feeling for you? And I was like, what is she getting at? And she was like, you remember you got cheated on this time last year. And I laughed out loud. I was
Meg!
like, I laughed. So she was like, this is when he was kind of starting to sleep around. And I couldn't stop laughing. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know how else to bring it up. And I was like, remember when you got cheated on last year? And we shared a good laugh about it. Because I know she really was coming at it from a like, is everything okay? Are you having any triggers? Like she was trying to say it like that. But she just like blurted it out. She just was like, you were cheated on this time last year. And I was like, thanks, Meg. Thanks for reminding me. But it's so true. It was really funny. Yeah. But I think, like those things can happen even with
thinking about that, like thinking if that would have been said to you right after it happened, how that reaction would have felt versus now. Like
totally.
And like that healing, that the level that you've gotten to from there, but then there's still more to go. Mm-hmm. And then when you get into a new relationship, there's going to be triggers there. 100%. Like that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And not just relationships, but we can specifically talk on that. Then we've said this in past episodes that sometimes when, there's the whole trope of like, you can't fully love yourself until, and I used to believe in that more. Yeah. And now that I've had more things happen to me, I'm like, we're trying out here. Okay.
It's not true anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think it's true you have to have a certain level of self-love. You have to have a certain level of like, my life is good without you, but you're a bonus. Like I 100% still agree on that. I'll die on that hill. However, I do think that when you say you are cheated on, say you went through a horrible breakup, they were abusive, or even just you're heartbroken, just a plain Jane heartbreak. Yeah. Sometimes there will be a partner holding your hand through that. That's going to help you get past that finish line of
Absolutely.
healing. Because I think, you can't really apply what you've learned
No.
until you're with a new partner
Yeah.
sometimes.
Well, then also when you're healing and you're not being triggered, you don't know what your triggers are going to be. And so, even though like, as you're like, you definitely are, and you've grown so much past that moment in your life. But when you have somebody else that enters in your life that's going to put you back into that headspace, it's going to be a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
But the good thing is, because you have healed to the point that you have, like if you would have tried to date somebody like right afterwards, your heart wouldn't have been ready, and like where you, like your mindset would have been, you wouldn't have been ready to accept anybody.
100%.
Whereas now you're ready, but you'll also still be cautious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, not to spin this positively, but we've talked about this with both our past toxic relationships, where sometimes I hate to say it, sometimes it's a gift in some ways, because it does teach you your worth. It teaches you how much you deserve, and it does teach you, like, I'm never letting that happen again. I will never subject myself to that ever again. So even though I would never wish that on anyone, especially my loved ones, I do think that there's a part of me that goes like, well, I'm a different version of Maddie now. And like at first, I'm sure you remember this very fondly. That was the thing I was really worried about. I kept being like, I don't want to lose this like optimism that I have, and like this innate trust. And now I feel like I can't trust anyone. And it was like this thing. But now I think, to your point, I can come at it, you know, now that I've healed and still healing, the next relationship, the next, you know, thing that might be triggering, I can come to it and be like, well, I know the ball game. I know what triggers me. I know what I don't want to accept anymore. I know who I want to be with as a partner, like the kind of soft place to land that I think I deserve. So it is, in some ways, the horrific things that happen to us can really catapult us into the beautiful situations that we're in now. And I think you can speak on that.
Absolutely. I think that, like, I think I've said to you before, like, I don't think I'd appreciate the relationship that I have now as much as I do if I hadn't gone through the bad. And so now it's like, I can look back on that moment. And I will also say, like, there's still moments I look back at who I was at different points in my life, even not just the toxic relationship, other points in my life that I'm not maybe so proud of. And I shun at like the memory of it. But then I also like almost look at that person as a separate entity. And I like feel sad for her, or I feel worried for her. I feel like just sympathy for her. And I think that the other great part about going through different stages or versions of yourself is I think it builds you into a graceful, compassionate person. Because then you look at somebody going through that same circumstance and you can have more passion for them. Whereas if you've been somebody that has never been touched by anything, then you're going to be like, oh, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you making that decision? Why you're
buck up,
get it together. But if you've made mistakes, if you've gone through trials and tribulations, if you've had your heart broken, like, you can be that soft place for somebody else that's going through it. And you can also like explain, like, you have to go through that to be, especially as people that we are, like, we choose and want to help the people around us.
100%.
And you can't unless you've gone through your own stuff too.
That's so true. That's a really beautiful point. And I'm glad. Thank you for bringing that up. And she's so smart, guys.
Sometimes.
This is why I do the podcast with her. I'm like Ruth Devereaux for president. It's true, though, because you made so many. I just want to touch on a couple things. You made such a brilliant point in saying, like, having that consideration for your past self is such a, like, looking back with kind eyes. And yeah, sometimes you're like, oh God, it's so embarrassing. You know, you're like, God, that's so crazy.
I'm like, you did what?
You're like, gaucho pants. Gaucho pants. Like,
that's the biggest mistake she's made.
No.
The rest of us.
No, I'm kidding. I just didn't want to air out all my dirty secrets. But like, you know, you think about those where you're like, girl, get your life together. But then sometimes it's like, she didn't know better. You know, like the past Ruth.
Or she was hurting, or she
did what she could with the situation at hand.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that, I mean, I even had this conversation recently with a friend, because I was thinking about, like, a memory had like inserted itself, or like was reminded in my head, and I literally shunned. I was like, ugh. And I talked to my friend about this, and they were like, well, do you know what lesson you learned from that? And that sometimes the reason we haven't either forgiven ourselves or moving past that is because we haven't identified the lesson we were supposed to learn within it.
Jesus Christ. And I pay for therapy on top of this, so I guess I don't need to anymore. That's making me shudder. Yeah. I agree with that. I think it is tough.
Yeah.
I think, we can learn so much, but sometimes not until we're on the other side of it. It's like, there's plenty of things that, and I'll speak for myself, that I can look back on this last relationship. And it is a funny situation because obviously I didn't know that things were going on until after we'd broken up. Yeah. And then it just like made me rework my entire relationship with him where I was like, what was real? What was fake? What? Huh? But there's so many things that feel healed from that, like that I feel like I can laugh with my mom when she's like, remember? And I'm like, I do, Maggie. I do.
What an anniversary.
I'm like, yeah, I do. Yeah, thanks. But there's also things like it's funny that you said that. Going to sleep last night, I had a memory of something he had said to me that was so lovely in the moment, and then it made me so upset last night because I was like, oh, you're so fucking sinister, and I think that's when I'm trying to like self audit here and be like, okay, what have I not healed from that, like why? And I think it's hard to mourn someone that you were in love with and like someone that might not have been like functioning a human, like a real person, like and I think I have that trouble a lot of the time because I think about him as like not not the person that I loved, but I have to remember that there was some version of that, and that's where healing isn't linear, like a lot of I feel like I can totally, I've gone on dates, I've taken a hiatus, but I was going on dates since what, like August of last year?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
September of last year. And since after that, like, I feel like I realized that I could put myself out there and I felt comfortable doing it. And I felt ready and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, well, if I can do that and keep putting myself out there, keep exposing myself to new people, then I really feel like I don't know, like, do you know what I'm
I
trying
feel
to
like
say?
you did. I feel like basically what you did is almost like shock therapy, right? Because like what you, because like you knew the fear was still in you, and you knew that you're a lover girl.
Yeah, and I had to prove
your
to myself
ultimate
almost.
goal is like it's not. I don't want to say that it's not your ultimate goal, but like a part that would make you happy is to find that right partner, to find that right connection, and because what you went through felt like it could have taken that piece away from you because it could have shut that piece of you down.
Trusting.
Yeah. I think what you did is you were like, okay, let me put myself back out there into this situation so I can start healing in this way. Not in a way of like, oh, I need to throw myself into another relationship. It was just like, I don't want to harden from something that I didn't deserve and also didn't like ask for and didn't like bring to me at all, you know?
Well, and like on the, thank you for explaining that because I was like, my
I
brain is not computing. But yes, and on top of that, now I'm like, I ironically enough feel very ready today. And then I'm like, bye boys, never to Carmen Sandiego, never to be seen again. And I'm wearing red. But it is one of those things that I am reflecting more and more, and I'm like, wow, I feel really emotionally ready to be in a relationship now. However, like at what cost? You know, I'm like, I wouldn't do it unless it was like the right person. And I think I have less bandwidth right now, and maybe this will change, of like trying to figure it out than I
what's
did
interesting
in the past.
what I'm hearing is like I think that before, like, you probably had more fun with dating where you were like, this is fun, like it doesn't matter, like it's cool, like, whereas now, like, I think what this has moved you into is like, nope, I'm not having, like, I'm not here for just like, I'm using the wrong words, but you're basically being more specific and intentional and I think that's a safety barrier, and I think that that's good. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that basically you just moved into a new era of the type of dating you want.
100%. I agree, and we'll see how that healing continues, because again, it's some days it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
listen.
who? What? I don't remember him. And then some days I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, and it happens like that.
I think when you fall in love, the next time that won't happen again.
Yeah,
It won't be the heartache of that. It'll be more like, oh my gosh, this guy like I dated one time.
Yeah.
It'll be that. I think then when that next part will be is like, okay, like how can I trust you?
Again,
How can
yeah.
you prove that I can trust you?
Yeah.
And there will be more of that, like, okay, show me.
Yeah.
Instead of telling me, show me.
Show me.
Yeah.
No, yeah, you're right. You're right.
But that'll happen with the right guy.
Yeah.
That will.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm like,
It will.
spinster for the right now. I'm joking.
Fast forward.
You can-
1 year later.
If you want to clip this, please make me a clown.
Oh,
clip
it's
this in
coming.
here.
It's a coming.
But let's talk about you.
Yes. What do you want
Let's
to
talk
know?
about, well, just like talk to me about how you felt healing being non-linear in your life.
I mean, like, I'll take it even out of dating. I think that
Thank you.
I've had, I think healing can happen or trauma obviously happens in many different forms. And I've had different moments in my life where I've had traumatic moments of things happening or things I needed to overcome. And I would also say, I think that time is obviously the best aspect of all of those things. I think talking about it is the best aspect. I think like I always, when I was younger,
You are young.
No. But like in the 90s, kids, talk therapy was not a common thing and it was not normal. And there were things that like me and my family went through that we didn't really talk about because that wasn't common back then.
Yeah.
And so then we like had to learn to like grow and get past things without it. But now even more so as we've gotten into the understanding of how much that communication heals.
Yeah.
I think even me and my family have gone back and like started talking more about things that have happened in the past that I think is healing even for that. Even though I'm not as affected by those things as I was then now, I still feel like there's pieces that are healed just by talking through it. Even I had a conversation with my mom where we talked about a scenario that had happened in the past that she didn't remember parts of it. I didn't remember certain parts of it. And like, I think as time goes on, you kind of forget and you want to like create that whole picture together and kind of like see what was your point of view and what was my point of view. And that helps with healing. I forgot where I was going with all of this.
I think it's all pretty straightforward for me. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
piggyback on what you're saying and then interrupt me if you remember. But I think sometimes you don't even know like those things were traumatic too. Like even if those like stories say for your sister or for your mom or something like that, where they were like, that really hurt me. And you're like, oh shit, I didn't know I hurt your feelings
no idea.
like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes not only that time, but that space away from it. Obviously you want to squash things as soon as you can. I think that's our style anyway.
Yeah,
we don't
absolutely.
like bottling stuff up.
Yeah.
As soon as we do, it's like written all over our
I
face.
know.
Too. Everyone's like, "Are you mad?" We're
I
like,
know.
"No," and we're like,
Neil's
"Oh."
like always like, he's like, I can really read your emotions. I'm like, everybody can.
And you can too, Neil. You can. But yes.
Yes, he also can
Yeah.
though. I remembered what I was going to say now. What I was going to say is those pieces, even though like I feel like everything that happened to me created who I am today. And I think that I wouldn't be who I was today if I hadn't gone through every piece of like the heartbreak of any childhood trauma, any piece of that. I wouldn't be who I am as a human being. And I know that's so like very like, oh, well, like, yeah, like it seems kind of like flowery eyes of like, oh, like, yes, of course, like you're going to look at it that way because you can't change the past. But I like who I am. I like who I've become. And I like what got me here because I wouldn't be here without it.
Yeah. I'm glad you feel that way. Yeah. I honestly, I disagree with you in that I agree that you should be proud of yourself, but I disagree. I don't think a lot of people are able to look back on their past and be able to reflect so graciously and so rooted in love for yourself. Like that's a lot of self-love coming through.
Well, I mean, that's not all the time.
But you've worked hard for it and it's
Yeah.
coming through. You know, it's like really reading because I feel like a lot of people won't even, not only that first step of communication, like you're saying, like speaking on these things that there are the skeletons in their closet or whatever, or even the tough situations that hurt their feelings that they just don't even want to admit that they were hurt by it. And I think a lot of people, specifically with their past, if they have some unfavorable things that they did.
They push it.
Yeah, and they don't have the kind enough eye to look back and be like, well, because of that, I am now current day me.
Yeah.
You know, I think there are a lot of people are unhappy with current day them, and then they blame it on the things that happened to them. Or
that is so true. And I definitely want to speak to that a little bit too, because I think so often, sometimes even in the healing process, what people get stuck on is the blame game what did I learn and where can I grow from this? It's like, what did this person do? What did this person do? What did this person do? And how did that affect me? Oh, I'm going to be mad at them. That, in fact, halts all healing. Just so, like, at least in my opinion, I don't think you can heal in that way. You have to forgive and you have to let go and you have to go internally. You can't control what anybody else does. You can't control how they treated you. You can only control yourself. And the more you look for outside reasons of who did you wrong or why things happened, you just halt, like, growth, period.
Yeah. And I think obviously there's situations where, like, maybe childhood trauma or someone doing you completely wrong where they were in the wrong.
Yeah.
But I think there is a point to it of, like, how do you adjust accordingly?
Yeah.
What pivots do you take from there to show yourself?
Well, I'll even use my dad as an example. Like, I feel like he affected who I am as a person, and I was angry at him for a long time. But then if I could just step back and go, like, but he's a human being. He has this title of my dad, but he's a human being that has his own trauma that he's gone through. So even though that's that piece, like, I can't hold on to that or else I can't move forward as a person.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it is a gift to yourself, funny enough. Like, even though you're giving him forgiveness, which is very, very gracious of you. I think on top of that, it's a gift for yourself.
Absolutely,
you know, being able to walk away and be like, hey, I'm putting this down. I don't need to deal with this anymore. You did wrong me. However, I'm not going to perpetuate this victim mentality. And, like, I'm going to try and be better and make sure every person that I leave better than I found them, and, you know, things like that.
It's so interesting too when you hear about, like, even siblings that have the exact same parents, but then they read those scenarios differently and then end up going in different directions. And one sibling's like, I didn't want to end up like that. Other one's like, how could I not end up like that? And you really do eventually make that choice of who you're choosing to be as a human being.
How you want to react to it, to the wrongdoings. And healing is such a beautiful thing. And
I also think with healing, you never see it when you're doing it. It's not clear. It's not like, oh, I'm healing right now and I see my daily, like, growth in it. It's always looking back and going, like, whoa, oh wow. Wow, like, who I was then, like, now I'm so far from. But in the daily increments, you don't see it.
It's almost like a hike that you don't realize you're on until you're, like, at the top of the mountain. You're like, did we just go on a hike?
What? How did I get here?
I am elevated. It's true. I think that's such a good point. I think that you don't get to reap the benefits. Sometimes I feel like your surrounding people do. Because I feel like some people are able to see those smaller increments of, like, oh, wow, you didn't, like, you say this to me all the time where you're so sweet about it. I'm so lucky to have someone like you, but you've multiple times called me out on, like, how I communicate now with men. Like, as soon as they drop the ball,
girl,
I'm like, bye. And
yeah,
I wasn't always like that.
No, and I'm proud of you. Yeah, I think honestly, because that isn't just like, oh, she's being like, oh, bye. No, you're setting these boundaries and you're keeping yourself safe, and you're also showing people that you respect yourself. Mm-hmm. I think self-respect is when you have that and you're like, no, I refuse to be treated like this. No, I refuse to be anything other than first choice. Like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And then what does the universe do? 1 year later.
It's fun, we shall see. I would love to be eating my words.
I can't wait.
I would love to be eating my words.
I'll play this at your wedding.
Yeah, you will. You're just in cahoots with my mom.
I am.
That's awesome. And your mom. That's so funny. But yeah, I think even though healing isn't linear, it is something that we are so lucky to be able to do.
Yeah.
And I think if people don't have a therapist, don't have a psychologist or psychiatrist that they can go to, a psychiatrist is more prescribing, but
We'll take those.
Yeah, well, maybe you need that. No shade, no tea.
No.
But yeah, as far as like your support system, your community, you can unpack so much and you can heal from that. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that at earlier on in the episode of just saying it out loud,
just talking
about it. It makes it so much less scary too.
Yeah.
I think there's so many times where I've been like, I don't want to fucking say this, but I know I'm going to feel so much better as soon as I do.
Yeah.
And it's true. I don't know if that's how anxiety manifests for me. Like I am such a communicator. Ooh, so sorry. Did I scratch you?
No.
My talent. Sorry guys. My communication is so front forward a lot of the time. That is something that I do try and do as much as I can. It's not my best quality. No, but it's just something I like to do because quite honestly, I will combust if I don't. And it's because that's how my anxiety manifests.
Yeah.
Like I think if I'm ever anxious, it's because I'm not saying something that's on my mind. So the Maddie that you see that's happy-go-lucky 98% of the time, it's because that girl's yapping her way around town. And the 2% is when I'm like, oh, I don't know how to say this or like, so I think, or like, not even necessarily I don't know how to say this. Maybe like I don't want to say this. Like I don't want to hurt someone. I don't want to blank here, insert here. But it's always better when you do. Yeah. And I want to encourage anyone at home, anyone that's listening. Yeah. It's always better.
Absolutely. Especially I think in all relationships, period. I think there's even sometimes like where I've held back and I didn't want to say something to Neil and I'm like, it's like growing inside me. I'm getting frustrated and I'm like building it up in my head. And then as soon as I say something to him, the right people in your life, like regardless if it's family, friends, partner, they're going to listen to what you have to say and they're going to hold you in that space. And if they don't, and they like, that's not the right people to be around anyway.
It's very telling.
Yeah, it's huge. And so I think that, and then you do instantly feel better, even if there's not a solution. If somebody just hears you and they go, oh, wow, I didn't know. Or, oh, wow, like, how can I help? Like, whatever that is, it doesn't even have to be a solution. It's just instantly being held in that moment.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'll speak for myself again. I am queen of thinking the conversation out in my head of like, and then they say this, and then I'll say this, and then they'll say this, and then and not once has it ever gone. Not once has it ever gone like that. Yeah. And for good, thank God. my brain is so much harder on me, you know. And I think that's one thing. It might surprise you too, like bringing these things. I know even you're in a very committed, loving relationship, and even you have reservations.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes,
and that's fair. That's fair. And obviously, it's not common, but that's come up before in the past, like you said. And if you're feeling that way with a man that has shown you time and time again,
literally never ever told me, like never shown me that I shouldn't talk about it, never yelled at me, never anything. And I'm like, should I say this or should I
do I never tell him take this to the grave?
Yeah.
No, truly. And then as soon as you do, not only do you feel better,
so much better,
but then he's at least clued in, so you guys
what's
can
going
solve
on.
the problem.
Yeah.
Which is it's a funny concept because it seems so simple, but 100% I know why. I've been there. I've been exactly in your shoes where I'm like, I don't bring this up.
But it's even harder, I think, sometimes with friends too, though, because it's like with friends, like you really like sometimes you don't have as like maybe you're not as close as like a partnership. Like you have a friendship and you've been affected and you really don't know how to communicate with that person and you don't know how they're going to react. And there really is like so much turmoil and then sometimes it feels easier just to not say anything.
Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah. I think it can be really hard, especially in friendships, to be like, well, because I think in relationships, I don't know. Obviously everyone has their own autonomy. In my mind, this is I'm just gonna word vomit really quick.
Yeah, go.
In my mind, with relationships, romantic relationships, it feels like even though there is autonomy, you are creating a relationship together, like creating a love together. When I think when friendships, it feels so individual and coming together to collaborate. Yeah. So that's where a lot of the time,
that's a great point.
Yeah, I've at least when I've disagreed with things that my friends have done, or I like don't see eye to eye or something like that, a lot of the time I'll be like, well, they're more than welcome to do that. Like that's their life, you know, like obviously if they're jumping off a cliff, of course, I'll say something, but you know, things that I'm like,
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I would do that. But if they want to do it, then it
It's
feels,
really their. You feel like it's their choice. Yeah, I
but
get
maybe
that.
that's not the best thing. Maybe that it's, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's probably a happy medium of like crazy honesty of like everything that you think about your friend, and sometimes we have friends like that. Like I have friends like that where that just no filter.
There's no holding bar.
Sometimes you're like, whoa, but a lot of the time you need to hear that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you have friends that are not necessarily curated, but they're a little softer with you, where they're going to hold your hand through the stuff, you know. So that's an interesting point that you're bringing up, because I'm like, how can I implement that more in my friendships? Because I'm not confrontational in general.
You're not,
Yeah.
But you
feel
are
confrontational?
I don't think I am.
I don't think you are.
No, I think I'm conflict avoidant, but I also try to be as honest with the people closest to me.
Yes, that's
with
a
the
huge
people
thing for both
closest
of
to
us.
me. Yeah, like because I don't think I'm as honest with everybody around me, but the people that like I truly feel like are my family, like my bond. Like if I see something, I'll say something. Yeah, but
No,
I do it in a kind way.
Oh yeah, you always do. I'm so happy and thankful for the times that you've done that for me.
Yeah.
You've done that so many times, and you've saved me many times. Every time there's been times where I'm like, I'm gonna do it, and you're like,
I'm like, don't do it.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm gonna do it.
you say it so sweetly too. You're like, I don't know if that's the best decision for you right now, just considering what you've gone through. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I don't know.
That does sound. That
Yes,
sounds like me.
that's
Accurate.
exactly, yeah.
And that tone as well.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not trying to make a caricature of you, but
No.
truly, and I'm so thankful for that, because that's why we have such a deep bond.
Well, and
too.
I think that's really you need people like that around you during the healing process as well to kind of lead you through that. And I think because a lot of times when we're at the beginning of healing, or even if we've gone like in like the downslip of
the
healing,
waves,
you aren't thinking straight. You're going through like a really hard time that you need like those friends around you that care, that are honest with you and say like, well, let me just hold your hand through this period. Let's come back up here. Like,
give it 10 days. You can text your ex in 10 days.
But check in with me first. It might be another 10 days.
I'm like, it sounds really good sleeping with my ex right now. And you're like,
I'm sure
God,
I would.
no.
But
and then you've saved me. I've had that text drafted up. Hey,
and I'm like, let me
just take the phone
this.
away. Put the phone down. Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Please.
In the healing process, give me like what you feel like were your top 3 must-haves.
Yeah. I think healing for me, the best manifestation of it for me is just like going inward, and not in the way of like closing off, but like focusing on how I feel my best.
Yeah.
You know, thinking about things that make me feel good day to day. And that's definitely community. Like not only once I'm in a hard time, I don't like asking for help. I don't, but like just making excuses to see my friends, starting a podcast. No, but like truly like making excuses to see my family and friends all the time. That's been so helpful. And knowing that people are there, not only like proximity wise physically, but like you can call on those people and they know what's going on with you. And I think that it gives you're not in this cycle of just thinking when you go alone and you
go internal too much.
Yes. I think you're just reliving the same conversations and same topics. And, you know, when you see your friend, even though you might spend 90% of it talking about the thing that you're upset about, but the other 10% is like, how's your job? What's this? And it's about them, or you're asking them about their amazing relationship. Really takes you out of your body a bit, and I think it gives you perspective of like the world's still spinning and you will be fine. That's one thing. Honestly, this is adjacent to it, but I'll use it as we'll see how many I come up with. But working out.
Yes.
I know that sounds
absolutely
crazy.
No, that doesn't sound crazy
And
at
I don't
all.
want to be like a red pill podcast. It's like, just work out and your feelings go away. Because your feelings won't go away if you work out. But I do think like I found a new confidence for myself working out as much as I have. And I think it's something to challenge you. It's something that it's an endorphin. It just chemically
totally
speaking, it's giving you.
I
An
feel like
endorphin
I have a
rush.
lot of creative thoughts when I'm working out too, because the blood is like like just really flowing. Yeah.
Like, even going on a walk, like
Yeah.
just being active.
Yeah.
I would say like those are when I'm like taking out my notes app on my iPhone and just fucking putting stuff down. On my iPhone, on my phone. Why did I say it like that? That was so weird. Okay, on my iPhone.
Does an Android even have the notes? No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, I think that's one thing that's really helped me. And it also like, then that's, if you can't take stock on your healing, right? If you can't be like, wow, I'm not crying 3 times a week anymore, or whatever, that you're like able to put a, like a timeline to it. You can do that with working out though, or like you can do that with like, wow, I'm going to 3 classes a week. Holy shit. Like I can hold a plank for a minute now. Holy wow. That's something that's, and it's like a little gold star. I promote giving yourself gold stars, giving yourself kudos as much as you can. And honestly, picking up new hobbies, trying new things. I think exposing yourself to new communities, new environments, and again, challenging yourself, just getting your head, be bad at something. Like
totally,
like, not that that's the goal, but I think just exposing yourself to things that are new. It's just
almost giving you a new starting point, right?
Yeah.
Because like if you think if you were going through that and you started taking up like, which we still need to do, pottery.
Yeah, I would love to.
And then like you get to a point where you're like, oh God, I'm getting really good at this. And you're more focused on your wins because it's distracting you from like
100%. Yeah. And I think like if you're dealing with a breakup or if you're dealing with cutting off connection from a family member or something like that, that also kind of gives you something that you can be like, that's mine. And they had no
connection to
it. They don't know Maddie as of
Yeah.
pottery era, you know, like
totally.
And I think that's something that might sound a little petty, but I think it gives you some space away from the healing or like the active healing. But by still healing you. Yeah. I'd like to reverse the question to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like the first one is both time alone and time with friends. I think you really do have to have that time alone. I think I also do the same thing. I go very introvert but a little bit too much sometimes, where if like I'm hurting or if I'm going through something, I don't want to bother anybody else with my pain. So I will just go into a huddle and I'm like, no, I'm fine.
Quite literally never been bothersome once in her life. But
many times.
No.
But then I also think there's a balance of that too. Like I think you should have that time to be introverted and say like, and kind of go through the process of knowing yourself and understanding what you're learning and what you're overcoming. And then you also need to be with friends, not only to get outside of your head and have those conversations, but also for the fun.
Yeah.
I think also therapy. I know like we talk about it so much, but therapy is huge when you're going through anything or have been through anything. And it might feel arduous at the beginning, but trust me, like the more you talk to somebody, especially somebody that is good, like you might have to do, like we talked about this before in therapy sessions, but like you might have to go to a couple of different therapists to find that right match. But once you do, like, and you find somebody that you connect with, that you feel safe with, like, and having that check-in and then working through those thoughts or those feelings and that pain, like really, really helps. And they also give you skills that can kind of help you long-term. And then my third one would buy a cat. I mean, cats will make your life amazing.
Yeah.
Buy 2. Actually, don't buy, don't adopt, don't shop.
Adopt, don't shop.
Yeah.
I mean, you have 2 angel
I do.
cats, so that's.
And honestly, like when I was going through my healing process, they were a huge part of that. Yeah. They were totally there for me, and like I did feel connected with them, and like those times that I was home alone, I didn't ever feel alone. And like I know that's not the answer for everybody, but like I'm a huge animal lover, and so that was a big part of my healing, I think.
Yeah, no, and I'm so glad you're advocating for it, because maybe people might be like, this is not the time, but I think there's something about that camaraderie.
Well, and also it's like caring for something outside of yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think you're not only proving to yourself that you can do, or like a plant. If you're not ready for for a cat or a dog or a gerbil or what have you, like showing to yourself that you can keep something alive and like flourishing and everything like that. And then you're like, I can do the same for myself.
Exactly.
Yeah. I did want to add one thing, and I'm sure you probably subscribe to this too. I love dancing so much, and that is something that gets me out of my, it's like truly a physical thing that like gets you out of the like hustle and bustle sometimes. And I'll just like put on music and be like, girl, you got to dance, like
I love
dance
that.
in your kitchen.
See, it's singing for me. I can actually tell if I'm depressed or happy if I'm singing in the car or not. If I'm not singing in the car, something's wrong. Yeah.
At home, if you guys need to sing and dance,
that's our lesson to you. That's the healing process. That's just a straightforward line. There's no, that is a linear line. No, I'm kidding.
I do want to ask before we close out.
Yeah.
Now looking back at things that you have already healed on, do you feel like they're like in the grand scheme of things? Do you feel like they've subtracted or like they've almost minimized in your desktop of your life, you know, like if you're looking.
Sure. Yeah, actually that's a great point. And like visually, like I thought you were gonna ask something else, but when you say that, when I think about where my life is headed and what I see on the horizon, there's so many great things. And when I think about the negative, they are such a speck of dust in like what my life will be.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think I was going to ask?
I don't know, but I thought you were going to ask more like, did you think like it, like, did you think it affected you? Or like, do you think like, how do you think it like shaped your life? Whereas like, but like to think of it in comparison, like, do you think like it's as big as like, I think that's such a cool thought.
Well, I mean, I think at least from my outside perspective, watching you, like, I think you have truly healed from a lot of things. You're on the other side of a lot of healing. So it's just to ask someone who is on the other side of some substantial healing, how top of mind does it feel? It probably doesn't feel top of mind at all.
If I talk about it, I think there's still moments where like, but it's the emotion is definitely not as like strong as it used to be. If I talk about it now, I'm just like, ugh. It
feels like a waste of time.
It feels like no, not really, because like now I really do feel like everything I've ever gone through, like I've always ended up running into somebody that needed to hear from me that I went through it too, and that I got through it. And so like, yeah, sure, like idealistically, would I want to go back and be like, don't do that. Don't date that guy.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah. But if I look at it in totality, like I've had so many great moments in my life, and like most of the people I've dated have been good people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if I even think like I've been really lucky with the type of people that I've been connected with. Have there been other things in my life that like, like that were bad too? Like, but everything is so minuscule and comparatively to what I know the great things that are to come for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. And you've met so many wonderful people
Absolutely,
through these, and like you've really become so independent. Like,
I'm like
you don't think so?
No, I am in like one way, but I'm not in another way.
But you're also baby. Like,
I'm a baby.
You're baby.
Take care of me.
You're baby. You deserve to be taken care of.
You.
Don't get it twisted.
Thank you. I'm independent, but also
she's independent when she needs to be, but she doesn't need to be all the time.
Like my no.
Literally. So okay, great. Well, I feel like if you're at home and you're going through a healing process and you feel like, wow, I feel like I've taken 2 steps back.
Totally normal.
It's pretty normal. Yeah. This bitch has done it. Like I've definitely felt that in the last year. But then I feel like the next, if it's in waves, that next wave is the highest of highs, right? So it's like you're getting higher and higher as you go. And go ahead.
But again, like I think that you're not fully seeing like the strides you've made.
Thank you.
I think it's because like what you're feeling right now is the tinge of still that emotion there, which is totally normal. And like that is still like the wave that you're riding. But like if I took you back to like the beginning and the pain then, like that you're so much further.
Oh, it's night and day.
It's so much further.
I think it's how they describe childbirth of like, oh, it's such a traumatic, and it's like the most pain that you've ever felt, but then this is not the same thing. But you forget about it because now you've experienced this joy of like having the baby in your whatever. If you want to be a mother. that is something that I've heard from mothers where they go like, I don't even remember the birth.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't even remember the
Yeah.
worst pain they've ever felt in their life. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
And I don't believe I've experienced the best joy in my life, which is incredible. I'm so happy, but I've experienced some substantial joy this last year since one of the most painful times in my life. And I'm able to be like, yeah, like I don't fully remember or like resonate with, I know the level of pain that I was going through at that time. So thank you for reminding me of that. And I hope everyone at home reminds themselves of that.
Well, and I hope anybody that is going through this and maybe at the beginning of that journey, please know like and see people that have made it through it. And we know it's not easy. We know what it feels like right now, but we promise you, just keep moving forward. If you're somebody that's moved forward and maybe feeling like you're falling back a little, that is normal. Just keep going forward and like understand like there's nothing wrong with what you're feeling. Don't feel like you haven't done the work. You've done the work. This is part of the process. Do not beat yourself up. Just continue doing what you're doing. Find that community, talk to a therapist, and know that you're loved and cared for. And we're here for you.
Yeah, keep going, baby.
You got this.
You got to do it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy you're here. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like. And we'll see you next week on Femme Tell All. Thank you.